Hey, welcome to the all new Sketch Magazine podcast. My name is Robert Hickey, and I'm here with Chris Dreier. Hey, Chris.
Wait, hello. Had to get my hand in there. Hi.
We're back. It's been a few years since Sketch Magazine's
hmm
done a podcast. A couple years ago, we did the Shoutfire podcast, and I did those for a few. I think we did like 20 of those. And we wanted to come back with Sketch Magazine because Sketch Magazine is going to make a resurgence. We're going to do our first printed issue in a few years this summer with Sketch 47. It's going to feature Bo Smith and Wyona Earp. And we got some cool artwork with some cool giveaways, and we're going to do a Kickstarter. That's nothing against distributors, nothing against stores, because I've already been asked because I put it out there. We're doing a Kickstarter, and I had some
yeah.
stores says, "But we supported you." I said, "Yes, you did. You did support us. The problem is not enough people supported us through stores. It's mostly been online sales and digital sales. So we're going to reach out directly, but we're going to set up some type of package for stores to come in and be able to buy too. So new Sketch Magazine this summer, 2022. Yes, 2022.
Yes.
Um, so I've dragged Chris over to help launch this new podcast.
Kicking and screaming.
Yes, yes, kicking and screaming very loudly. But he had something to share with us. He just came off of a successful Kickstarter.
Yes,
And what
I
was that
did.
for? What was the
It
Kickstarter
was
for?
it was for Freaks and Gods, Volume 2, Number 1. It's technically number 5,
Okay,
but when the publisher changed its name and rebranded itself, it just kind of wanted to start over.
sure.
So, Volume 2, Number 1, I plan on doing legacy or ongoing number, either inside or on the cover, just so people don't
Right.
get.
I
Yeah,
think on the cover is cool.
yeah, somewhere. I mean, just so it, maybe, I'll just put it everywhere. Just put it all over the place. Just so everyone knows it's number 5.
Real big on the back of it, behind
Real
the
big on the
character.
back.
Yes, yes, a variant
Yeah,
cover.
yeah, I'm sure they would love that.
Yeah, oh,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
But yeah, we ran it for 15 days and it was, I don't even
You
know what the
guys don't.
percentage.
You guys don't think the shorter amount of time hurts it, not the 30 days? Always feel like it. And I know midway things lose steam for about 7 days on the Kickstarter,
Right?
but then it just allows you to do that much more social media promotions and stuff. So what was their purpose of only going 15 days?
Um,
Oh, wait a minute. Your publisher is
oh
you
yeah,
said
the publisher is now Invader Comics, used to be 215 Inc., but
yes.
literally it's the exact same group of 3 guys.
Right,
So
right.
it's the long story short, 215 Inc. started in I think Pennsylvania ish.
Okay.
215 refers to the area code that the company started in.
Right.
Well, it's people own it. Completely different people own it now, and they live in California. So that name has
Oh,
no connection to them whatsoever. So that was the reason for the rebranding.
okay. Okay.
Now, as far as the 30 to 15 day thing, to be honest, Bob, I don't really know why. I think the idea was to go. They never gave me an actual reason. I think it might be just to get in there and
Mhm.
just carpet, just get it out there and just try to go and get it done. Now, I did a Kickstarter, as you remember, back in 2020 for
Right.
Tales of the Dark Tunnel, which was like a side project to Freaks and Gods. I
Yes.
ran that for 30 days.
Yes.
And I ran into the exact same thing during that one as I did with this one. This one was 15 days long, and about 6 days in, I'm like, I'm running out of things to post. I don't want to keep repeating because even if you show the same cover and you
Right.
got different text,
Right.
people see the cover and go, "Oh, I saw that already,"
Right.
and then they just go on. And I guess I could post panel after panel after panel. But then I
Yeah.
kind of concerned about giving the book away. It's kind of a
Giving the whole
stupid
thing
thing.
away.
Yeah, it's
But
like,
you've got guys who are doing Kickstarters like Brian Polito with Lady Death.
yeah,
And when it gets to that slow period midway, that's when they start giving some things away to people who's already jumped in there. And then that
right.
entices new people to jump in because they want to win something free or be available for it. And that's the reason you see about 14 days into it. That's when they pull the numbers of the current bidder, reward, people who's bought in and everything. It's like, okay, because it entices them to keep things going and it gives them something to talk about. I know
Uh,
we did that with Paradox Wars. I gave away some sketch cards, some original pieces of artwork midway, and it gave me more stuff to talk about, gave me more things to show, and it was fun. I mean, it was fun to do and
You
discuss.
know, now that you mention it, I never really noticed the timing of when they would do that. Um,
Hmm.
feel kind of dumb for not noticing that.
No,
But yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, that actually makes sense. When I did mine, I honestly don't remember a like super slowdown.
hmm,
I guess I didn't know what to expect, so I kept my expectations low. And you know me, I
right.
tend to do that all the time anyway.
I know, I
So
know.
if I was getting one or two every day during that slow period, I was like, oh man, hey, we're still moving.
Right, right.
But for that one, I actually had a lot of graphics to show up and coming things that you could
Hmm.
for stretch goals. And although this one, what Invader did was they had stretch goals based on um, hitting the goal
Hmm.
and backer numbers.
You're right.
So the
Hitting so
first
many
back,
backers.
right, they hit 50, and then they all got a free comic that Invader was just going to toss in.
Hmm.
They've got a lot of comics from when they were 215, so they're
Right.
just going to and then they did 100 backers, and they also gave another thing away at meeting the funding. So
Okay.
just so many different ways to do it, you know.
There is. There is a lot of different ways. Um, yeah, the whole thing is trying to keep momentum, and
Right,
and of course, with anything, building an email list is important. You know,
oh
direct
yeah,
contact is more important than social media. It's more important than anything. Direct contact. I mean, I think I literally get something from Coffin Comics, that's Lady Death, Brian
right.
Pluto, on a daily basis. I get something either about their store or product they
Hmm.
have or the current Kickstarter. They're constantly in my face, probably at least once a day. And that, to me, that's a little overkill
That
sometimes.
is for me too,
But
actually.
I
Yeah,
mean, Amazon also sends me 3 or 4 a day. So,
yeah.
there's something to it that it works. And needless to say, Brian is killing it on Kickstarters.
Oh, he is. You can see it.
Yeah.
I mean,
So,
yeah. I mean,
but
when his lowest one is like 300,000, you know, it's like
yeah,
I'm gonna hang my head. Oh, only $300,000.
yeah, yeah.
You know.
But hey, he worked for every one of those.
Oh,
Brian
absolutely.
worked hard
Yeah.
for it. So, okay.
Absolutely.
Well,
But
originally we weren't going to talk about Kickstarters on this new, all
all
different,
new. Not
all new,
that. Not that different.
not that different. I'm still here.
I'm
All
still
new
here.
Sketch Magazine podcast.
Right.
But what we're going to originally discuss, and I guess we can move into it, is I want to start breaking down creation of comics. Everything from
Mm-hmm.
coming up with the concepts to hmm, we'll talk about character designs,
Right.
world designs, story concept, breaking things down. But on this episode, I want to talk about what comes first, characters or stories.
You want me to go first?
Yes.
Okay. I think the answer is both
Okay.
because sometimes you come up with a really cool character. I have an idea. Okay, how about this? Danger Tours, which actually appears in the newest issue of Freaks and Gods.
Yeah, I know.
I drew these characters back in the mid 90s. And
Okay.
I'm like, well, these are kind of weird looking characters. One's kind of a cone head, one looks like a dog. I put one of them in like like a jacket, like not a jacket, button down with a tie.
Right.
It was just a weird drawing I did, and I named them, you know, JP, Alex, the most kind of like simplistic names for comic book characters.
Right.
Sorry, Alex or JP, if you're listening. It's not, not ripping on your name. So I showed it to a friend of mine, and I said, "What should these guys be?" Because you know you can create a cool character, but what they do and who they are—that's where the story comes.
Right.
And he said to me off the cuff, "Tour guides," and I laughed at him.
And
And then
that's where Danger Tours come
yes,
from. For
then I
the
went
tour
home, and
guide.
on my way home, I'm like, "Well, wait a minute, that's not really that stupid of an idea." So the characters spawned the story.
Right.
You
Right.
know, um, I think when it comes to the story spawning characters, the only thing I can think of off the top of my head, because we sat down and you tossed this question at me, and
Get used to it, buddy. I'm good about that.
Is the second issue of Freaks and Gods. I've already got the main characters, the trio, Steve, Steph, Atom, Bargeist, and I had this.
They were picked out before you had the story concept. You picked out those characters.
We can come back to that if you want.
Okay, all right.
That's one of those stories where it's like, what? But I had an idea for a story for the second issue. My son at the time was 12. Okay. So if you got a 12-year-old son or girl, a niece, whatever, daughter, son, whatever, you mine those ideas.
Yeah.
They've got some great ideas because they don't have a filter telling them that it's stupid.
Right.
Because they're not. It's great. So I worked out this idea, and I had to create a character, which ended up being the main villain, called the Physician. I usually use a lot of public domain characters, but I couldn't find anyone that I could adjust to be this character, this villain. So I made my own. So the story created that character.
Okay.
It's the best examples I can think of right now, but I really think that it's both. I mean, I'm sure you've probably got.
For me, well, in my first true instance of trying to create something, we had already launched Blue Line, and we were getting ready to go do a ton of shows. And one of the guys working in the studios with me, we decided to do a print. We were going to take the print, and we were doing shows. I mean, we were doing shows every other weekend. We did 20-something shows a year. And so we did this print, and he drew these two girls facing off against this huge troll guy. And I inked it. We printed up a bunch of copies. I even got some in the warehouse still that we all signed. So we're going to dig those out eventually and do something with them. And I kept looking at that, and we did a couple of shows, kept looking at it. I'm like, what if those were time travelers? What if they went back in time? And so there, the two girls were already designed. I started coming up with the concept of the time agents, and soon the Skystorm universe sort of developed it, and I got with Brad Gorby and some other people, and we started working out some details on looks and feels and stuff like that. So there, definitely the two characters sparked this whole universe thing. I ended up creating all the heroes and villains and all that. On the flip side of it, my best-selling novel at Amazon, Camelot Forever, Lancelot's Redemption. Yep. We did hit #1, which was awesome.
It did.
That actually was story first. I wanted to tell a tale of Camelot in modern day. I spent a lot of time thinking about how it would work, what it would do. I'm always about time travel for some reason. Some of my favorite books are time travel. One, Dean Koontz did Lightning. That's one of my favorite books I've read. So I wanted to do something about bringing some of the characters from there to a current presence. So at first it was going to be a comic book, of course. So we did some artwork, worked with a couple artists. That's why I've got some key pieces of artwork and stuff. But it really didn't work out after a few years. So then I decided to just write a novel. Hooked it with Bill Nichols. I said, you write the past, I'll write the current stuff. Worked out pretty well. Put out the first novel last September. But that was an instance where years ago I wanted to do something using those concepts, but make them my own. I'm not exactly using the same knights of history of L's. And then the second one, I'll go ahead and run it for. No, I'm not going to run it for everybody, but we do bring King Arthur to the present. That was the whole goal. So the second novel is 3/4 written. I just got to go through and do final edits and wrap up the end. Hopefully be out later on this summer, this fall. But that was one instance where it was definitely story first. I knew what I wanted to tell, and then I started creating the characters and the balance, and then once I got in that part of it, then the character started taking over.
Right.
You know how the characters start writing themselves. Yeah.
Right. When a writer says that to a non-writer, the non-writer always looks at you like you're weird. Well, you're controlling them. Kinda.
I always said I throw them into situations, and they write themselves out of it by their personalities, who they are, because of what I created. I know everyone has a different personalities. They handle things differently because of their history. I know their history. I know where they were. So I understand sort of where they're at and how they would get out of this situation or this story or whatever. So this is an instance with Camelot Forever is that I created the concept, we came up with the characters, and then we sort of backtracked with the characters because I'm like, oh, there's a lot of prequel here. And the funny thing
Right.
was, prequel was supposed to be a short story, ended up to a full novel. And I'm like, it's
Right. Yeah.
published it as a novel.
Right.
So, we did that last fall. So, but yeah, that was one. But there's been many times like I wanted to create my own X-Men team, but then it started off with the characters. I created Tempered Steel,
Mm-hmm.
and then came up Dominion and a bunch of them. I mean, a few of those comics not even been published yet, but they're completed. So maybe we'll see those in something.
I never knew that about your time. What was that? Blood and Roses, right?
Blood and Roses.
I
wish
did not know that
I had
was.
my hard drive because I
Yeah.
still have that print.
I
my
did not
hard
know
drive.
that came just from someone you commissioned to do something. And did
Yeah.
you just sidebar? Did you say, hey, draw two women with a dinosaur, or did they
It
just
was like a big troll guy.
a troll? Right? Yeah.
The troll guy. Joe and I just said Joe worked in the studio with us. We were doing a
Yeah.
lot of side work and stuff, and we had originally did a comic book that ended up being Storm Quest, but it was something else. And we published a couple little indie things. And finally, I'm like, Joe, just do just do this two girls and this troll, and people love that D&D crap stuff. I mean, and we'll sell the prints. Well, we printed these huge, oversized prints, because I had a printing press then that printed that big size.
Yeah.
It was black and white. And I thought, oh, we'll sell a bunch of them. We sold a handful of them just because
Yeah.
we were on the show, nobody else was there, and we could sign them,
Yeah.
We sold a few. You've been there.
Yeah.
We sold a few of them. But, yeah, that's where they actually, the very first print was something where Joe Martin did up a sketch for me. So I inked it and did all the finished work. And then, I created the whole concept.
I did not know that. It just cascaded from that one thing. I
That
did not
one-
know. I've
that
known you
one-
for how long, and I've never
A
knew that.
year or two. Yeah.
Couple of years,
Couple
handful.
years. Yeah.
Couple of years, yeah. One thing about story first and characters, I wrote an article for Sketch Magazine that I ultimately never turned over to you
Oh, okay.
because timing plus when I reread it, it came off kind of, I don't want to say mean, but I don't mean it to be mean. That's the problem. That's why I'm
Right.
like, well, I can't send this until I make it sound. Basically, what I've run into, and I ran into this a lot standing in line or just whatever at a convention, and I see a lot of this online now with people posting their ideas and stuff. Which sidebar to this, I think people in groups and forums post their comic book ideas
Right.
too often.
I agree.
What I mean by that is, I forgot where I read this. I read a book by an author back in the day, a book about authoring. Not an author. Every book is by an author.
Right.
And they were like, the fewer people you tell your stories and ideas to, right? As you keep telling your story to people, like, oh, I got this great idea for a comic book character. You tell it, you drop down in your mind of level of excitement. Every time you
guys
tell
the
it.
story. Right.
And you're telling it, and all of a sudden, after you've told 5, 10, maybe 15 people over the course of a couple of months working on it, you're like, yeah, it's not that great. It still is great.
Done that.
And I've actually experienced that myself. The more people you tell,
Right.
the more you're elaborating to make it better, and then on top of that, you're losing that excitement. But I've also noticed that one guy in particular, I forgot, where I was at a convention, he was in front of me in line to see an editor. This is back when I would stand in line to see an editor.
Right.
So it was a long time ago, right? He was talking about how he had written this issue, and he was on his double-digit number draft, re-edits. Do you know what I mean?
Wow.
I don't remember the number. It was 10, 15, something like that. And he's going on about, I got to get it just perfect. I got to get it just right. And his friends were like, yeah, man, you gotta get it right. You gotta. I didn't say anything because I'm not, I don't, I don't, but no, you get it right when you put it out and you find out what was wrong with it.
Right.
People, okay, there's going to be two kinds of people. Well, three kinds. One kind is going to be like, oh, that was great. The other kind is going to be like, you know what, it didn't quite hit like this, and I'll tell you why. And then the third kind you kind of want to ignore, and that is the one who's like, this is crap and you're an idiot. Those people, you just ignore those people. But it's,
Yes, you do.
you learn from putting that first issue out, or that novel, or anything you're working on, and then people will tell you, hey, that worked. And that was a little, but to constantly be working on your draft, your copy for a first issue for 15, 20 drafts,
No.
you're never
No.
going to get it done. It's never going to be
Exactly.
perfect.
That's a problem. You never finish it.
Right.
It will never meet your standards of what. I'll be honest. I will sit down and draft. I will write, and then I will do flash it. I will flush everything out. Because
Hmm.
right now all I'm doing is writing novels. I'm not working in comics, which I'm doing a podcast about comics. But
Right.
I feel like after working in comics for 30 plus years, like we can do this. Um, and then I hand it off to an editor, and I say, okay, read it over,
Hmm.
tell me what you think, and come back to it. And then usually by the time he's coming back, I've added some more content. I'm like, well, this could use some more detail. On this next novel that's coming out, he came back and says, this needs to start in the present, not the past.
Hmm.
I'm like, okay. He goes, the main core of this book is in the present. The back is leading and introducing stuff and the characters and stuff. But the main core of this book is the present. What's going on in the present? So I went through and created a whole other chapter and introduced all these kids and stuff way before I was going to,
Hmm.
and it turned out really, really well. I liked the way it introduced these characters right off the bat. Now we're sort of seeing it through their fresh eyes, and then we go back to a past and come back to the present. So that's one time an editor comes and says, I'm not going to tell you what to write, but this needs to start here.
Right.
Because you want people in people's heads not to be thinking, well, this is a medieval history book. You want people to think this is a sci-fi, fantasy, present day type
That's
book.
good advice, and advice that you didn't notice because
Telling a story.
you were right in the middle of it. You're like, oh, I gotta get this out, right?
Right.
With my
Right.
comic books, I don't I don't tend to show it to anyone for editing.
Okay.
The publisher, Mike Perkins, goes through the PDF and tells me where I've spelled words wrong or I missed a word,
Right.
and I go back and fix those. I think I've been lucky that my books have been like coherent.
Means you're a good writer and good
Um,
editor.
well, I think to me, what it tells me is that my stuff is very simple.
No.
I don't know.
No, actually, I don't see yourself as simple.
I just
Not at
think
all.
that if I do plan on writing some books at some point. I got some ideas,
Mhm.
but
No, I know.
those books I am going to definitely send to an editor because it's big and it can get unruly and
Well, the biggest thing I've ran into is I don't fill pages.
oh yeah,
And reading some novels this past year and listening to a ton, damn, some of these authors fill pages, repeat
right.
themselves. Um, and I know why now because we're getting ready to do our audio book
Mm-hmm.
for Camelot Forever Lancelot, and we need so many words. I think we're at 44,000 words, and that's only like 4 hours of content. So it's only going to be a 4 hour audiobook.
Oh,
That's really on a low end of an audiobook.
really?
Yeah, you want 6 to 8 hours on an audiobook.
I don't listen to audiobooks, so
Yeah, I do because to me, it's just I can crank them and I can go do something else. Not
hmm,
creative wise, but I'm constantly, me, I'm constantly
yeah,
building something,
yeah,
fixing something, so I can throw them down on my tablet and just have them cranking out on a speaker while I'm off doing something, or I
right.
got some headphones that I walk around with, and they'll blare in the edge. So and it's a nice break away from my own worlds, my own creativeness, and I want to learn. I feel like a learning process is reading and listening to other authors that I respect and listen to. But I've had comments that say, "You just get into the action and run with it," and I'm like, "Yeah, I know. I'm trying to give more details. I'm trying to slow down a little bit and be more descriptive, more, and that's something I'm trying to learn." One of the neatest things is for the holidays, I sit down with a book club. Now, this was a church book club. I will say there was family members in it, so that's how I got into it. But I was really, and the age range was all over the place. They bought the book, bought hardcovers. They all read it, and they came back with some really good questions, and it made me feel good because they were asking questions that I wanted them to ask. Well, what about this? And what about this characters? And it was so sad when that happened. And why did you do that? And it's exactly what I wanted.
That's right. Yeah. It's always cool when you got an idea, when you are going for a reaction, and then you get someone who comes back later on after reading it, and they got that reaction, and you're like, oh my God, that worked on.
Yes.
Because I didn't think it was going to.
and the thing is, they start asking questions. Okay, well, where does it go from here? I'm like, I'm not going to give you that much information. But
okay, here's a quick question. How many times have you been at a show or just talking to people and they've read your comic books, let's say, and they're like, oh man, I can't wait to see where that little side thing's going to go. And you're like, just you wait. When in reality, you have no clue. You haven't written that far ahead. You're not even thinking about that.
Or they or they bring up something that you're like, I wasn't even going to do anything else with that.
Yeah.
I just sort of tossed that out there like for fun, and
that's your takeaway. Like, okay.
I go, okay. Guess we'll pick that one up.
I remember Unit Primes. My first graphic novel. You published my first graphic novel, and it was a character drama thinly disguised as a sci-fi. Did you remember?
Yes.
Right, and I had I wanted people to have a certain emotional feeling about this when they read this book, and I was surprised when, like you said, some people came up and they were like, "Oh wow, I really felt that was sad and that was this." Although I was at a comic book store doing a signing for this book, and this guy came up to me who had bought the Primes, and came up to me, and he then told me how much he liked it, which is, I don't care how old I get or how long I'm going to be in this business. When someone tells me how much they like something I've done, I'm always like, oh my God, that's so great, thank you. And I mean that, He then starts telling me how the book is about Buddhism. And he's got it like chapter and verse practically, like, oh yeah, this is where, this is like about when Buddha left, and I'm like, what are you talking about? It's got nothing to do with Buddha. But this guy was like, he was adamant that my book was pushing Buddhism. Can't hear you.
Now can you?
Yeah.
All right, much better.
Yeah.
So he basically rewritten your book in Buddhism. Okay?
He did. He thought that it was 100%, and he wasn't upset by it. I mean, he really got a lot out of it. I think he really brought more into it that was there and got a lot out of what he already knew, which is great, but he was telling me what my book was about Buddhism, and
wow.
Okay.
No. So, my memories on Unit Prime is that you brought me a copy of it in Chicago show.
Yes. Yep.
I read through it, and I said, Chris, give me a character that I care about.
Yeah, you told me to get rid of the alien boy and make him human.
I said that's what I said. Give me something to make a connection with.
Right. And I was like, yeah, but everyone can connect with a boy. And you're like, no, it really should be a human boy.
Yes.
So I made that change.
How long ago was that?
Okay, well, let me see. My son is 17, and we started talking about getting I finished the book. I finished inking and getting the book packaged and sent off to you when he was just a newborn. So 17 years ago.
Okay. I thought the show was about the time that my wife was sick because I was at the show but not working it.
Right.
Katie at that point had cancer, and I had sent a
Oh,
whole
that's right.
team there to run the show.
Right.
Remember, we set up like a whole alley of Blue Line. There was like a whole
Mm-hmm.
alley of Blue Line, and
I
I was
remember
there
that.
only for like 2 days. The
Mm-hmm.
4 or 5 day show, or whatever it was back then. 4 day show, I guess it was 35. Yeah, and but yeah, that's the one thing I come out of that was remembering unit primes, and I was like,
Yeah.
just give me something, give me a visual of somebody that hooks me,
So
and you did it. I love
and
unit primes.
I was like I didn't want humans in it. But you made complete sense. So there, I did take advice
But
from an
didn't
editor.
another editor back me up on it too?
That was later. Well, I didn't never. I never thought you were wrong, but yeah, another
Oh,
editor did. Another person I brought it to did mention that maybe there should be a human in there that we can identify with. And I'm like, well, they
hmm.
all got 2 eyes and hands and legs. How can't you identify with that? They have emotions.
uh,
But I made the change.
See,
Um,
even now that I think about that, I think of shows like Babylon 5.
oh
With
yeah,
all the
yeah,
aliens that were almost human and everything, but
yep,
still you had that core cast of a couple humans or a
right.
human that made our connection, and that's the person we connected with
Hmm.
and flow through the whole story.
That
So,
was a great
yeah,
show, by the way.
oh, I love that show.
That was a fantastic show.
Evidently, J. Michael has a Patreon page that he does stuff on now.
Oh, he
He's
does.
releasing scripts and stuff. Yeah,
Oh
I just
wow.
recently got into Patreon again because of setting up something for Skystorm Games.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I'm going to have to check out his Patreon page. But yeah, evidently he releases some scripts and stuff about Babylon and different stuff like that over there. So
Huh.
I actually have a copy of one of his scripts from
Oh, from the
Babylon
Babylon
5.
5?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're cool.
Yeah,
They're
that would be pretty
detailed.
awesome. Yeah, yeah, I remember that show because it was a 5-year plan,
Mm-hmm.
and then the producer's like, you know what, you're only going to get 4 seasons, so he condensed 2 seasons into 1 season, and then they gave him a fifth season
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, he's like, oh, great.
Oh,
And
great!
is that when we got the Rangers and all that? Because we
Yeah,
started
yeah,
adding more stuff? Yeah.
right. Because he
Yeah. It was more
finished it
fun.
off.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Now that would be a good question to ask him. Was it the characters that started this story, or was it the story
Yeah. Or
that
was
just
it the
like the whole
story?
overall story of the Babylon 5 station?
Yeah. That
Yeah.
would be good.
Yeah,
We'll
we
have to
should get him
track
on
Michael.
here and talk
We'll,
to him.
we'll track him down some point. You know me. I'm willing to ask anybody anything. It
I
doesn't
know,
matter.
yeah.
I'll
Yeah, I
drop him a
know.
note and see what can happen. You know, all you can
Right,
do is
yeah.
say, who? What?
Yeah. What are
You
you?
know, that's all right. But so yeah, really, there's not a perfect answer to this question: characters or story. It's whatever you come up with and whatever you're comfortable developing and how you create. I guess you know.
I agree with that completely. Sometimes it's, but the biggest thing I think anyone who's wanting to create should get from this would be create it and release it and continue.
I think so. I mean, you can. My
Right.
thing has always been, even with the novel, it got to a point that I was done with it,
Mm-hmm.
and anything that I feel like I might have messed up, I'll fix in future stories.
Right.
If it needs to be fixed. If it, well, here again, um, I got real busy with Blue Line back in the day, and so I handed Bill Nichols Blood and Roses. I says, "Here, finish this.
Mm-hmm.
Write 2 issues. You know, let's get this thing gone. You know, I'll studio the artwork and stuff through it, but just get it done." So he goes and he threw him into these relationships and introduced these guys, these other agents and stuff. And the whole concept of the other agents were fine, but he wanted these relationships and all that. So I'm like, all right. So we did them. And I'm like, no, it's not all right. So I'm like, I'm going to do one more issue, the special. And what do I start the special up with? I blew everybody up to hell.
They died.
I killed them all. Oh,
Previously on
I,
Blood and Roses.
they're not really dead, but it was sort of like, boom, no more relationships. These girls got one focus: get these time charts together so they
That's
can get
right.
back to their own time.
They don't got time for that stuff.
We ain't got time for that stuff. So yeah, there was a time where I handed a friend off, said, "Hey, write these," and he was going off in the direction that I'm going. Okay. Then after we published, I was like, no,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna blow everything up. So I blew up Infinity, and Infinity still blew up in the comics, and
Yeah.
where we're gonna run with it in the video games. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
Well, Bill, from what I see, Bill always tends to go more into that sort of relationship sort of side, which you know,
It works well with the novels.
That's his style, man. That's just what he likes. Yeah.
Bill co-writes the Camelot Forever. Right now, he's co-writing the novels with me. You know.
Right. Yeah.
So, and that's his strength, is building that relationships, and he will come in. He'll be the first person to come in and look at my work and go, I don't know, but you need a little bit more in here. He's not writing it or whatever. He just says, need a little bit more in here. Make that connection. Right. And like my mind is like, get to the story, run, get to that big thing. And it's like a video game. Get there. Yeah. And he goes, yeah, but yeah. And I understand the concept of making people care, making them feel, be a part of it. It's just, there's a huge difference between writing 4 words and saying, hey, show those 2, embrace, blah, 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 and writing the 3 pages to make that work.
Right. Yeah.
So, there's a big difference there. So, no big change. Character stories, either ways works.
Yep. It's the timeless question. Not chicken before the egg. No. It's characters or stories.
I'm sure we'll come back to that question again.
Oh, yeah.
In the future. So,
yeah. I think, you know what? Even the next couple ones that you were talking about will probably loop back to this.
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah, the next topics.
We always loop around and get off topic, and you know, if the people listening to this had only heard our 45-minute conversation before we started recording, and we realized we should have been recording that. You know,
you're the one who's got the record button.
Yeah,
I got nothing here.
I think next time I'm just going to hit it and we'll go with it.
Yeah. You can get the bleeper button going in there.
the bleep. Yeah. You have to beep out. Yeah, I spend a lot of time editing out that words. I don't do that anymore. I don't cuss anymore. Yeah, I do, but I try not to.
Not when you're filming, no.
You know, it slips sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes.
So, Sketch Magazine's back this summer. Podcast is back. We did 70 something episodes before, which I was really shocked.
Really?
Yeah, and they got almost 50,000 downloads. So I'm hoping this one picks up from there.
Yeah.
Those weren't recorded; those were just cast.
Oh.
So yeah, so this one will be the first one on YouTube.
Nice.
And we'll be back. You gonna come back next week?
Well, I got nothing else to do. Sure. Of course I will. I'll schedule it out.
You got this schedule. Yeah, pencil me in. All right.
I'll schedule it in. Yes.
All right, bud. Sounds good. So I'll see you next week. All right.
Yep. Talk to you later.
Take care, bud.
Bye.